welcome to the Murfreesboro City Board of Education meeting. I will ask that we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Dr. Jean Lloyd, and for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening to all, and before I ask for the approval of the agenda, I'd like to know if there are anything that any of the board members would like to add to this agenda. Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposes? Ms. Mathis, Communications.
Yes, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to slightly reorder the communications listed. Tonight we have a presentation to be made on behalf of all the art teachers of Murfreesboro City Schools. It's to be made in the honor and memory of Dr. Lon Newell, and Ken Van Eck, one of our art teachers, will make the presentation. Mr. Van Eck, welcome and thank you for coming.
Good evening, Marilyn and School Board. This is a piece made in honor of Dr. Lon Newell, who was an advocate of art education. And the art teachers and we all got together and decided to put together something for him in honor of his long-standing, outstanding career in the forefront of education and meeting the needs of the students and kids of Murfreesboro City School and the surrounding city. So there it is. It's an art piece.
Well, it is fabulous, and I know that all of you all know the history, that we would not have had an art teacher in our school system had it not been for Dr. Newell. And certainly that is a fitting tribute for you all to get together and to make this. Do you want to share a little bit about how it was composed and who came up with the idea?
Well, this actually started as it's an art in service for me to show the technique of using these tile pieces for creating large murals. And as we got together, we started discussing what are we going to do, what are we going to make. And we all realized that Dr. Newell kind of impacted all of us at some point in our lives through getting our education and getting into the system. And so we decided to put together this self-portrait of him. Well, not self, but a portrait of him in honor to just hang up in central office here somewhere. So.
Oh, it is beautiful. I'm very proud that you all have done this in memory of him and also to present something that we can keep his memory alive. Thank you so much, Mr. Van Eck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That truly is very touching. And I think for all of us who worked with Lon Newell and got to spend years working with him, it brings back a lot of good memories, and it reminds us of how much his work goes on, and you all carry on his work. Thank you so much.
I want to again acknowledge our retiring employees. Thank you all so much for the fabulous dinner that was provided to them last Tuesday. And again, I want to thank all of our retiring employees for all of the many years. I think I counted up 437 combined years of service to the children of Murfreesboro City Schools. Thanks to Bob Roberts with Middle Tennessee Realtors Association, they donated trees to the Mitchell Nelson Elementary fourth graders to plant in recognition of Arbor Day. And thanks to Deborah Malone of Cry Like Realty for coordinating the activity. And a special congratulations to Miss Georgia Moore's fifth grade class at Mitchell Nelson Elementary. They submitted the winning name of the Middle Tennessee Medical Center's new robot. The robot is named Ralph, and Ralph stands for Robotic Assisted Laparoscopic Prostatectomy Healer. And that's a very creative class to come up with that, and we do congratulate them. They did receive a $250 award to their class and a pizza party. We also congratulate Miss Courtney Brown's third grade class. They were one of 5 finalists in the contest. Next is to congratulate the following third grade students in Jennifer Carper's classroom who are winners in the Harry and David's Perfect Poetry Contest. First place goes to Jonathan Smith, second place to Lainey Margajak, and third place to Jasmine Anderson. And Bellwood Bowden has had a number of contributions made to them. Maple Street Grill gave them $1,300, Murfreesboro Breakfast Rotary Club $500, John Peavy $250, the Rogers Group $250, and Steve Dix $100. Very generous donations on behalf of our preschool children. Thanks to all of those people. And we congratulate Mitchell Nilsson Primary Kindergarten teacher Donna Hill. Her article entitled "Which One Doesn't Belong" was published in the May edition of Mailbox magazine. And Cason Lane Academy has been selected to be part of Cracker Barrel's Rockin' Reader. It's a program that is a result of a grant submitted by Greta McGree, and the school will receive books, bookshelves, rocking chairs, and these will all be available when volunteers come to read at the school. And the last item is acknowledgement by Greg Lyles, thanking volunteers Van Cook, Josh Honey, and Sheila Honey for the many hours they've spent beautifying the campus at Mitchell Nelson Elementary. And those are all the communication items. Chair.
Also, Ms. Mathis, tonight, just a little note to congratulate Mr. Campbell. He's going to be retiring from a job well done, although he was not a part of the Murfreesboro City system. He is a part of our board, and he will be retiring. And
I started out in Murfreesboro City Schools.
but you're not retiring, Mr. Campbell. There is a difference. But no, thank you for your service to our board, and I know it's a much needed. You're probably ready to retire because your wife is also retiring. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
But no, he was, but he left us. So congratulations. Ms. Mathis, consent items.
Consent item, approval of the minutes of the April 28th board meeting.
Is there a motion? Second? Second. There's been a motion and a second for the approval of our minutes. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Like sign opposed? No opposers. It is passed. Number 5, Ms. Mathis.
Yes, we have no action items tonight, and item 6 then would be reports and information. Wanted to provide you, we do this annually, an update on the staff development offerings for our licensed staff members, and you should find a book on your desk like this showing the staff development offerings in the school system. And Danielle Kaminsky, our instructional coordinator, has done an outstanding job assuring that there is a variety of opportunities made available to our people. So, Ms. Kaminsky, if you would come and share this report with the board, please.
Good evening. We've offered approximately 850 workshops this year. One of the areas we have worked really hard to develop are workshops combined with shoulder-to-shoulder classroom modeling through our instructional coaches in several different ways. Some of the programs that we are especially proud of as an instructional team are our Technology Integration Study Group, our Professional Residency and New Teacher Induction programs, our Leadership Academy, of course, the many parenting workshops offered as part of our Community Outreach program, our Literacy and Lunch Bunch sessions, and additionally, several of our staff members have presented at state and regional conferences this year. Here are a few examples of professional development sessions that we offered this year. Introduction to Words Their Way, Muscle Science Training, which is a classroom management and organization program for your science classroom or lab setting. Take 10 health activity workshops, which were connected with the state standards. The new Tennessee State Standards training in the areas of reading, language arts, math, and science. E-mathematics workshops offered through the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics. Triad training to assist staff in working with special needs students. Responsive classroom training, which is part of our character education program. Using AimsWeb and ThinkLink probes to help prepare for TCAP. And Successful Strategies for the Second Language Learner, or as we sort of titled it here, what every principal and teacher needs to know about English language learners. So that's a little bit of a sampling of what we've offered this year. And I'm very proud of my instructional team. They work really, really hard to offer a variety of things to the teachers throughout the system, and we're always looking to improve and add so that we meet the needs of the staff here in Murfreesboro City.
Thank you, Ms. Kaminsky. I'm always so impressed by what we have that we're able to offer. I'm always wanting to go and take these classes myself because they just seem so interesting, and there's so much good information being shared back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've also been impressed year after year with how many extra hours of teaching classes that the teachers take. And they really do make good use of these courses.
Most of our teachers take way beyond the 12 professional development credits required, and it really is a testament to their dedication here and really to continuous improvement. So that's really important for our students, and proud of the staff.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Your next item, Dr. Butterman asked that I put on the agenda discussion of funding sources for certified personnel.
Do you have any questions, sir?
I had asked for a printout that would be a little easier to understand than our budget document, where we could, at a glance, look at each school and see exactly what extra positions had been given to schools, and maybe with their free and reduced lunch numbers and minority numbers and special programs at each school. It would kind of help us see as a board where we're spending our general purpose funds. Because I did have a question as I looked through the budget, or had time to look through the budget since the last meeting, to notice that we're still having a lot of inequity in how we're putting specific positions in different schools. But I thought if we could get this and maybe table it to discuss at our retreat, it would give all the board members an opportunity to look at the individual positions. And I know we received a printout on Friday that had each school, and then I'd asked Mr. Anderson to send us a copy of the free and reduced lunch percentages. And I think if you'll write those down on each page and then look at the total number, look at the school to personnel ratio, school personnel licensed to student ratio, those are significant numbers, and we might look at, and just may want to look at how the position was funded last year, how it's going to be funded next year, whether they're a title school, whether we're using title money to the greatest extent in our title schools. But I thought that would give everyone an opportunity to kind of study that and look at it, and possibly we could discuss that at our June retreat.
All righty.
I did have one question. There was some alphabet soup I didn't understand. What is EIS?
Education improvement. What are your education
Early
improvement?
Okay, what does the S stand for? I mean, it's listed as a funding source of one of the...
Early childhood. What is it?
Early
intervening services.
services. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't
Thank
know
you.
what you were referring
That's
to.
okay, I'm sorry.
And that's one of our federal funds, or is it a state fund?
It's federal through state. It's another federal grant that comes through the state.
So it's a single grant that we're paying for a reading recovery teacher on?
If that's what it says, that would be correct.
You know, okay, so is it a grant written for one specific position and we're paying that one position, or is it part of a grant that we could pull other money from?
Ms. Kaminsky, would you like to address that for us, please?
Sure. Early intervening services is 15% the state allows us to use out of IDEA money. For the prevention of children. Sort of the idea is to prevent students from going into special education.
Do you know that the 15%, what is that total?
I don't know the figure off the top of my head.
But it could be, there's a possibility there could be more than just one teacher's salary out of that, or it could equate to more?
There is more than one teacher's salary out of that, correct, Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Classroom, I mean, I only saw it listed under one.
It was funding one of the literacy coordinators who resigned mid-year, and is also funding our response to intervention coordinator.
Where does the response to intervention coordinator house out of the central office? Who is that?
Dina O'Neill.
Okay, and if you could you explain Title I and Title IIA to everyone? I think that would help us understand just a little bit about funds coming from this year's budget and next year's budget, whether we'll have those or not.
I'm not clear on the question.
Explain the difference between Title I and Title IIA.
Title I is for, goes directly to schools receiving federal funds and federal dollars based on their free and reduced lunch numbers. Title IIA is really for the use of staff development and could be used for something called class size reduction, although we do not take class size reduction.
Oh, so do we have teachers, like I see a reading recovery teacher under Title IIA?
I don't believe there is a reading recovery teacher under Title IIA.
For this year, I'm finding it at Black Fox.
There's a teacher leader. The teacher leader for reading recovery does continuing contact and staff development for reading recovery. They do training and staff development. They also support the reading recovery program. You can do that in two ways. One is through an in-house trained teacher leader, or the other is through contracting outside of the school district.
Okay, and you do have that listed under Title I, but this year we have a reading recovery teacher that was...
Teacher leader who does training.
Okay, so that's the same person that retired?
Yes, she's retiring at the end of the year.
Okay. So as we look through, if we notice where fund comes from Title IIA this year and then goes to Title I, that's...
The reason that particular fund is moving to Title I is that we will be able to contract for our continuing contact and training services through Williamson County once the teacher leader retires. So that will work for us. And with the Title I money, it's just a matter of where it fits.
Are there any disproportionate numbers in schools where you think that we might have students who are on free and reduced higher percentages at schools that may not be receiving the services another school may have that's got lower percentages? And have we looked at any?
If you're talking Title I, we're required to spiral from the school with the greatest needs down. And we do follow those guidelines. So, our schools are ranked based on the percentage of free and reduced lunch students in the buildings.
Unless they're a Title I program.
If they're a Title I program, we're required to spiral down.
School-wide?
It's any Title I school. Any Title I situation works that way. You have to spiral the programs. The amount you get an allocation from the federal government, and then you work the budget so that the school with the greatest need receives the greatest number of students with free and reduced lunch, receives the greatest amount of money, and down.
Right. Okay. And do we have our schools that are going through the Title I study next year? Do we know how many are going to be doing that?
All of our schools are working to become school-wide.
Great.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Ms. Campbell?
Ms. Kaminsky, being that we're going Title I schools next year, can you explain to me the educational assistants, midday assistants, okay? There are those who have to take and pass the test. Am I correct in stating and understanding that this is for those people who are directly involved with instruction? If it were to be like an attendance person or a school secretary, they don't take the test. Am I correct?
Yes. Anybody who is directly involved in the instruction of students in a school-wide Title I program must be highly qualified, which requires 2 years of college or a passing of a basic skills praxis exam, reading, writing, and math. We do have some principals, as you know, who move their educational assistants and their staff around. So some principals are asking their office staff to take the praxis as well.
Okay.
So that's what's going on in an effort to try to make sure that we remain highly qualified under the rules.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Duggan?
Have our parapros, I know some call them educational assistants, I call them parapros. I know they'll be taking the praxis in June, I believe. Have they had the opportunity to have any study sessions or any guidance? Because I know sometimes when you've been out of school for a long time, you get a little antsy about taking math tests in particular.
Yes.
'Cause I know we have some phenomenal paraprofessionals, and so what are we doing to help prepare them for this exam?
We have provided our schools with study guides, and we are encouraging in many of our schools the teachers are tutoring, which is really nice, the EAs or parapros to help them, which has been it's a nice bonding experience. And we're trying to calm everyone down and reduce the test anxiety. We know it's anxiety producing for folks who have been out of school for a long time, but so many of our folks work with children, and I think they're going to find this exam is they're going to do just fine.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Ms. Kaminsky? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Kaminsky. Behind tab 2, you'll find a personnel update, and Mr. Lee Wilkerson has prepared this along with his staff and is going to provide that information for you.
First of all, under the personnel report, you'll see the licensed personnel retirements, resignations, and non-renewals as of May 15, 2009. And as you peruse those, I'd like to recognize someone that's here tonight. I want to thank Mrs. Jo Lassiter for her dedication and service to Murfreesboro City Schools, and for the Department of Human Resources specifically. It's one of those people that you do not want to do without. So please, I'd like to recognize Ms. Lassiter. So the names of the retirements come first, and you have the resignations. Second page is the non-renewal of contracts, non-tenured teachers. And then this is an update as of May 15th. The two most recent teachers that were hired, Mr. Westmoreland, he had filled in as an interim for a special ed teacher at Scales, and that eventually resigned to stay home. And Mr. Newell is our new teacher in 5th grade at Discovery that replaced a gentleman that retired at the end of this season, end of this year. And then the next page is the interim teachers that were hired as of 5/18. We've had a large number of teachers out on leave, lots of maternity leaves this year, and we know they're enjoying their new children, but we're looking forward to getting those folks back into the classrooms and doing the work that they love. And then the last part of that is the tentative assignment list. Those are the tentative assignments of all licensed personnel at every site in the Murfreesboro City Schools. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And your next report will be found behind tab 3. It's just to update you on when your board meetings will be held next year for the most part. And of course, those are subject to change should you wish to rearrange that list. But I'd like to let you mark your calendar a year in advance. And then behind tab 4, you'll find your comparison of your budget totals, the income and expenses. We're 83% through the year, and at this point we have net income of about $3.3 million. And the income will not go up, but expenses will continue because most of our tax money is in, and we do not get a payment from the state in the month of, I believe, June. Ms. Bell and Mr. Anderson have prepared this, and I'm sure he will be glad to respond to any questions you may have of some of the details regarding the report. But we're in pretty good shape, very good shape financially. We're actually, our revenue is slightly behind last year, as you'll note, but our expenditures are behind percent-wise as well. So as long as you can keep those expenses down, then we're in really excellent shape considering the state of the economy. And I do attribute it to our finance department and everybody working with Mr. Anderson to make sure that we do not overspend in areas that we can control.
I'm very appreciative of your doing that. I know that it's a tough climate to be trying to figure out what's going to happen and what you can do now to change, because you've had to work within a budget that we've set that you knew really probably wasn't going to meet expectations revenue-wise, and that's not an easy thing to do, but I'm glad that you all have been able to do it so far. Do you still feel like our projections for revenue for next year are on target? Are you still comfortable with that?
At this point, we feel we're okay. We're still going to watch real closely as we get into the year, see if we need to make an adjustment. But, as you know, sales tax is down. Sales tax collections are down some. And a lot depends on what the state does. They're $1.5 billion behind on their collections at this time. So that makes them very nervous. But they receive stimulus money as well. And their stimulus money, they're keeping the BEP whole. They're keeping the financing piece whole. They're not going to hurt that. So we feel good about that part of it.
Thank you.
And your last report is the attendance report for the 8th month behind tab 5. We have 6,921 students in K through 6. And then we have another 364 pre-K students. And the 6921 that you see on the sheet down at the bottom right, we're actually up 20 students over last month, which, as you know, is a full classroom. Kind of unusual for this time of the year to gain that many. I guess the star of all our schools, Scales had an increase of 8, and then next was Pittard with an increase of 7. Well, I take that back. Cason Lane. Cason Lane takes the cake with an increase of 9 students of those 20. So Cason Lane, then Scales, and then Pittard. And then some of the schools lost students. Mitchell Nelson Elementary lost 6. So it's always a toss-up to know where the students will be. And those are all the reports for this month.
Any questions from Ms. Mathis? Okay. We're down to other business. Is there any business you'd like added?
I just have a couple of questions.
Oh, okay.
If that's appropriate at this time. One, do we have writing scores back yet for the district?
We do, but they're embargoed at this point.
Okay. Do you have an idea of when we will be able to know what those are?
You know, it's different every year. I would say we'll know in a month. But it may be, they may not let us release them until our other TCAP scores come in, which is usually around July the 4th.
Okay. And the other question I had was, I know that the testing dates for next year, the spring of 2010, have been moved, I always get this confused, up. Is that right? It's going to be earlier than ever before. I would like to request that you poll our principals and ask them their feelings about the board possibly sending a letter to the State Department asking them to reconsider when those tests are given. I know we're only one district, but I think with there being new standards and much higher rigors with the standards and a new test, that if at all possible, the testing date could be moved even later, like in May. But I would not want to suggest that the board do that until we know the feelings of the principals within the district.
I have recently met with a State Department official, and that topic did come up. And of course, the answer is always the same. Because of the norms and because of the time needed to turn around to get the test back, they just simply are not very considerate of that. But there's no reason not to try again. And I think if they continue to hear it again and again and again, maybe they will respond.
Because I do think sometimes there needs to be pressure brought to bear to really get to the bottom of why it takes so long to turn around, because they are machine scored. You know, it's not like you have things have to be hand scored. Because I just think we need to give our students, as much time and our teachers as much time. So anything we can do to maybe bring some pressure. I know that the new testing company will make mega dollars off the state of Tennessee. So
They should be.
I think we should have as much say-so in that process as possible for the sake of the children.
Well, I totally agree with you, and I'm sure our principals will, but I will get their input, and I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? At this time, I'd like to ask that we do have the board retreat coming up in June. If you have anything you'd like to have on the retreat, if you would forward that to Mrs. Mathis, please.
Ms. Wade, is there a possibility we may use that board retreat as our June meeting and then schedule a July meeting for the fourth Tuesday, since we will have schools that have already begun at the fourth Tuesday in July?
Well, I don't see any problem with the June meeting per se, as long as it's advertised.
I think he's saying that have it replace
The
June
retreat,
meeting.
replace the June meeting, and then have our July meeting the fourth Tuesday of July, because we've typically not had a July or December meeting, but now that we have these schools that are opening on the year-round calendar, I think that it'd be important for us to meet as a board right after they've opened.
Well, that would be something that the board would need to vote on if they wanted to change that meeting to make the retreat the June meeting and then have the meeting in July. Normally, I know in the past, if there was no meeting, no business in July, there was no need to have a meeting. I still like that idea. I don't want to meet just to meet. But if there's nothing there for us to discuss, then there would be no need for us. If you'd like to put that in the form of a motion about the June meeting and let the board make that decision. Ms. Duggan?
Could we maybe ask Mrs. Ridley to poll the board?
Yes.
Would it be appropriate to vote on it at the June board meeting about the July meeting, the June 19th retreat? That way everyone may know. And there may be issues that come up at retreat that we would need to discuss in July.
I think one of the things that will be important is looking at the annual agenda and seeing which items need to, I know Linda, Ms. Ridley and I were looking at that the other day, and there was at least one action item that's required. I don't recall what it is right now, but we will be glad to poll you and to see how that works with your schedule, and also look at the July calendar and see if there's some items that would need to go on so that we would need a July meeting. I'm certainly not opposed to the June retreat replacing the June meeting, and then I'm going to look ahead, because if there is an item that does need approving for June, we could have it on the June board retreat agenda.
Okay.
And then I'll look to see what business would be needed in July. Admittedly, if there's not any need for a meeting, I don't typically try to just have one. Tonight was a lighter agenda than usual, as you'll notice. No action items.
And we had in the past given the board members a chance, quite a few of them traveled during that time. There had been a time that the board members had a chance to get all the family out and do what they need to do and then return for next meeting. But like you said, we'll wait till the retreat and see if there is any pressing business. Is there any other business? Mr. Campbell, you have something you'd like to say?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
second? It's been moved and second that we adjourn.
Good job, Mr. Campbell.